Good evening, everyone. We're back. You thought we weren't gonna come, but now we're all here. Friday night edition. I think it might be the first Friday night Spiel episode of all time. So this is the very first one. I hope everyone's doing well. It's the Spiel Sports Talk Show. It's your boy Sal. It's a Muslim. Hanging out with my boys here on Friday night. I got Randy all the way over there in Jersey. Got Quay in Arizona. About to get into some sports. Hope everyone's doing really nice. By the time you hear this, probably won't be Friday anymore, but sending positive vibes to everyone out there. Hope everyone stays safe, get home safely. It's 12:51 a.m. November 22nd here. How both of you doing? How's your nights going?
We doing good. We doing good. My guy hit us with the Drake timestamp. 12:51 in November. This is about to be a legendary night.
Yeah.
Happy to be back with the boys, chatting sports as always. Always a good time catching up on all the different stuff in the different leagues. Got some popping updates to get into. A lot of seasons in full swing. Friday night show. Your boy slept in on Wednesday, was knocked the fuck out. But we back. We make it happen whenever we can. And that's what I appreciate about the show too. Always good banter, always a good time. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Quay.
It is. I'm cold in the desert, right? And I grew up in the cold, and I'm not used to it anymore. I haven't really been in a place that's.
Changed.
Yeah, my blood has thinned out. I'm not used to this anymore. But otherwise, doing well. We're hoping something good happens, which we'll talk about a little bit at the in the show. But as always, I'm looking forward to a great show with everyone, whether that is, a current and consistent viewer and listener or a future one. Always have a great time. And, yeah, can't wait to get into it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a lot of fun tonight. Let's go ahead and start off with the game that happened in the NFL yesterday with the Bills and the Texans, who lost on a final drive. There was a game sealing interception by Bullock over there at the Texans. He had 2 picks and a forced fumble last night, had a monster game, and stopped Josh Allen, who is an MVP candidate after they beat the Bucks the week before. James Cook ran for a 45-yard touchdown. I have him on fantasy. I'm the recipient of that. Still lost, but lots of lots of points there. Oh, makes me want to tear up. Cedo League. It's funny that Cedo League here to tell you guys a story. I went 5-0 to start off, hottest team in the league. Looks like it was my year. Now we've lost 6 in a row. Unprecedented. The ups and downs of the season. So we'll see what happens this back end of the season. We just gotta make it to the playoffs and then just have 3 great weeks. That's all you need. I just need 3. Let's just win next 4. So
That's it. Next up.
anyway, sidetrack on that. James Cook, Ray Davis had a 97-yard touchdown too. I could show us some of those highlights in a bit, but what are your guys' thoughts there on the Thursday night game last night?
I'll let you kick it off, Quay.
Well, we finally had I won't say finally. It's kind of been either hit or miss Thursday night game. really interesting matchup with the Texans and the Bills. Bills coming off of a big win. I feel like the Buccaneers, if healthy, probably could have pulled out, that win there if they had like Bucky Irving. But the likes of like a Deshaun White just decided to come out of nowhere, just tear it up. And the game was very, very competitive, but the heroics of Josh Allen and the Bills offense, they were able to pull that out. But coming in off of a short week against a very stout Texans team, I think this team, at times feels a little incomplete. When they when you look at them on offense, they're a little up and down. Especially when CJ was out there, and you're wondering, maybe he had a sophomore slump. That's fine, but sure, year three, he'll play a little bit better. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if he doesn't have like that want to anymore. If the offense, as in terms of the scheme, has been a little weird. There were injuries early on. Had a lot of rookies out there, so there's a lot of different things. And but the offense has been playing a little bit better. But that defense, ran by D'Amico Ryan, former Texan himself, is just one of the best, honestly, if not the best in the league. I don't think any team really wants to go against them. Sure, they may give up, the big play every once in a while, which allows teams to maybe score here and there. But usually that's them bending and not breaking. It's usually field goals given up, not touchdowns, and that helps them, stay within games, keep them close. Even the games they lost, they really haven't gotten blown out all year. So, it this team gets healthy. Christian Kirk is back. Nico Collins was there. CJ Stroud gets healthy, comes back, and if they can play like this, I think the Texans can make a push. Right now, they're only in the all it takes is a Jaguar loss, and they swap spots, and they'll be a wild card. But I think this team here has every bit of a chance to, be a dark horse with the way this defense plays, and if their offense is able to just take any advantage of opportunities given to them, they have enough on offense with Nico Collins, who I think is still an underrated receiver, doesn't get enough credit. Christian Kirk, when healthy, is a very viable number two, has played, the number one for a team with the Jaguars, and has been a number two here in Arizona, early on in his career. He's very, very much capable. I think of this two-headed monster as well with Woody Marks and Nick Chubb running show as a committee back there. This team can make some noise. And with 8 sacks, man, they were just, again, that defense was just all over the place, just causing mayhem against towards Josh Allen and making it a really tough night. I think the Bills may be in trouble. That's it's not really something to worry about right now. They're still in the wild card. It's not a big deal. But with teams really itching to, make pushes in the AFC that are in the hunt, like the Chiefs, the Ravens, technically speaking, even like I said, the Texans here, but even technically speaking, the Bengals have a chance still. So, every game is going to count going forward, and their schedule doesn't get necessarily easier. They got the Patriots again. They're going to have to go against the Steelers as well. And it's going to be tough. So we'll see what ends up happening with them. I think the thing that we're seeing with the Bills is that they really need a wide receiver one. Without Dolan Kincaid, I think he's helped open up their offense a lot at tight end. But when he's hurt, you kind of see how they get a little stagnant when other things aren't going their way. Allen can't get the ball rolling with his legs, And I think also their defense is kind of suffering a little bit from not having enough of a run stopping ability. So, um, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think they'll shore things up as the season goes on, but this is crunch time. We're at Thanksgiving, and the following week after that, it will be December, and so it's crunch time. But again, shout out to the Texans, for a great victory, stout defense, and we'll see what the Bills can do and bounce back next week.
Yes, sir. My question for the panel was actually going to be something you touched on, and that is at 7-4, does this put the Bills on fraud watch, from being a real Super Bowl contender, as they do lose ground on the Patriots and kind of all those other AFC teams that do have experience or are waiting in the wings. It'll be, interesting to see. And I don't need to bring up how the Bills as a franchise has not the best luck when it comes to having a solid and amazing team in regular season, but everything kind of falling apart at some point in the postseason. So it'll be interesting to see how Josh Allen handles that going into the latter half of the season. To your point, every game is gonna count. Um, Really, especially for that pole position, for a wild card spot, and of course, in the playoffs, you want to be able to play at home as much as possible. And the Bills have such a great fan base. Going up to Buffalo is not an easy place to go and play, especially in the dead of winter. I think they're going to want that on their side, so they really have to close out this season strong. And if anything, if the division is still within grasp, but they're going to have to really perform and probably can't lose more than one game the rest of the way, if they hope to be able to keep up with the Patriots or hope that the Patriots stumble. And it's cool seeing how the season has taken shape, kind of as we are approaching the playoff race, but we've still got like a really pivotal climax of the season ahead. So it'll be interesting to see which teams show up.
Yeah, and the Bills, they don't have much room for error moving forward. They play the Steelers next week in Pittsburgh. Then they play the Bengals, who should have Jamar Chase. And then they play Patriots, which will be a big pivotal divisional round, maybe divisional round preview there. And then Bills Browns is how they end the season. So it's doable. It's doable. I mean, if this is the Bills team that we are accustomed to seeing, we should. I think that they can show big here. It's going to be not going to be easy for sure. Um, so in terms of the Texans, uh, what do we think? Do like once CJ Stroud comes back, will this team elevate? I mean, it looks like Bills has been pretty steady, and I mean they don't really need Stroud to be that guy. They need him to be able to make some tough throws every once in a while and manage the game and lean on the run game. Uh, what do we think about the Texans? Moving forward.
I think CJ Stroud still has all the potential that he had and displayed. It's just a matter of, getting that consistency over time. I think, yes, he might have regressed technically, statistically, but that just is a natural growth progression for quarterbacks in this league. And then aside of some minor injuries, have combined for like a perfect media storm to really just kind of question whether he is the guy. And that's fair. That's sports. It's a next man up mentality of like, hey, what have you done for me in the past week or so? But I think long term for them, he's still the vision. And they need to just back him and make him feel comfortable back out there on the field. Teams have more tape on him. So how can they mix things up with their offense? How can they put him in the best position to win? And I think with a defense like that, we've seen what the Eagles and Jalen Hurts have done, where he's being used in such a Swiss Army knife way to really just drive that team forward on the back of strong defensive performances. So I think that there is a method there that the Texans could replicate with CJ Stroud and really just protecting the ball and being secure, making the occasional accurate throw, but keeping his throw count under 30 passes a game. That type of offensive mix I could see him thriving in. I think if they, try to put too much weight on his shoulders, have him throwing 35 plus times a game, and asking him to go out there and win them every game, then they're probably gonna struggle. But I see them being able to probably snag a wild card spot if they stay healthy. And this win against the Bills honestly is huge. This is the type of statement win, especially on a game where it's isolated in national TV. I think that's going to give them confidence heading into the last leg of the season.
Yeah, I think to your point that you mentioned, which is a great point. Um, DJ not really having to do too much. He keeps like his passes under 30, maybe 35 on like a really competitive type day. I do think it heightens their chances of winning. The way that they're running the ball a little bit better, like I mentioned, with having Woody, Marks, and Chubb kind of splitting the carries there. And then you having your receiving weapons pretty much healthy outside of Tank Dell. And these rookies have been stepping up with like Noel and Hutchinson. So, and Higgins as well. So it's one of those things, if CJ doesn't have too much to do and you have your defense that can make a stop when you really need them to and will always put you in a position to at least make the play to win the game on offense. I think it is a good recipe for sure. I think they'll definitely snag a see how, unless there's some crazy injury on defense or their offense really implodes and so puts too much pressure on their defense where they, are playing more than their offense, their gas and things like that. I just don't see them, losing this momentum that they have, especially once CJ comes back. And we have other teams in AFC that, are going to start to falter. I don't know if the Jaguars are going to be able to hold on, throughout the season. The Chargers are going to be able to hold on throughout the season, which that'll be a perfect segue after this. Just because, one, the Chiefs are right there as well. And, the Chiefs don't have any margin for error as well for themselves. Um, things can really, really change. And so I do think the Texans have every bit of a chance and will get a wild card spot, whether that's the 6th or 7th spot. It'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the standings right now. Um, 5 all the way to 10 in the AFC, right? The Ravens could easily swap with one of these teams, and then the Chiefs and the Texans are right there are ahead of him actually. So the Ravens win percentage is still pretty high though, 75%. They win, so lots of playoff implications moving forward, but um let's talk about the Steelers game. Uh It was a very eventful game, to say the least. I was there at the game. Got to go to the game this weekend. Showed up late though. A buddy of mine invited me at like 12 o'clock. And I was like, damn, I gotta make my way over there. And I made my way there. He had the parking pass for me too. The lot was literally right next to the stadium. It was like the closest I've ever parked to go to the game. But yeah, I got there second quarter, and wow, there were some crazy things that happened during this game. Um, the Steelers end up beating their rival Bengals after Aaron Rodgers hurts his wrist, um, which I believe is a fracture. And he ends up coming out of the game. Mason Rudolph comes in the second half and just manages the game, makes the right throws, and does enough for the Steelers to win. They had a defensive touchdown by Kyle Duggar, who they acquired from the Patriots, making big plays over the last 2 weeks. And there's a lot to be excited for about the Steelers team. There's a Darnell Washington play that's been circulating online where he manhandles three grown men. And I'll throw those on in a bit, but the Steelers' season has been up and down, right? It seems like they beat the Colts, who are one of the best teams in the league. They beat the Patriots, who are one of the best teams in the league. They somehow, on defense, stopped the Bengals, who have been averaging 34 points per game over the last 3 weeks since Joe Flacco uh, came in as a starter. And what started that was a matchup against the Steelers where Jamar Chase went berserk and went off, and it was a shootout. But this time around, it was more of a defensive game. But despite all of the cool things that happened on the football field, this game is going to be remembered for an incident where Jamar Chase spat on Jalen Ramsey, who the both of them were penalized the play before for unsportsmanlike conduct, and then the next
You
play,
got the highlight.
we're gonna play the highlights for you in a bit here, but Quay, what are your thoughts here about your hometown team and these Bengals that they just beat? It's always something with the Bengals, right?
Always something with the Bengals. One of my most vivid memories is TJ Houshmandzadeh, wiping off his cleats with a terrible towel. That's what ruined their season. That's why Palmer got hurt during the wild card game, and that's why they ended up losing. You can't be mad at us. But I think the Steelers handled business though. It was one of those things that we needed to do, to be honest. I feel like I'm going to sound like Mike Tomlin by saying that, but they just had to go in there and treat business. They got belt to ass essentially. The first matchup, yeah, the game was close in terms of the score. However, we should have been able to contain them. The defense was not playing up to its potential and its price tag, and so that being said, the defense has been playing up to that price tag now. Bringing in Kyle Duggar has made such a difference. Hey, being responsible for a big, big play, giving us a defensive touchdown, which was amazing. James Pierre was out there playing like, a number one corner. He's actually been playing very well since he's been inserted into the lineup with Slay not being there. And I think it's made our defense even better. Side of the fact of having Jalen Ramsey play safety more, it just makes me wonder. Once if we actually get like a Deshaun Elliott back, which that would be kind of crazy. But getting him back, having him and Duggar back there, Ramsey slot, there's sky's the limit, and just this pass rush is insane. We have a lot of can do so much. I mean, Sawyer, young talent, he's getting better week in and week out. Herbig needs to be on the field more on defense as well. But like you mentioned, on offense, star man, it goes to Darnell Washington. It's just think, we go in, week out, you always post a stat undefeated, 9-0 when this dude is literally out there playing X amount of snaps. What is it, 60 when he plays 40 or more, 60 or more snaps? Yeah, I think it was like 40 or 45 more snaps. a game, and when he does, we win. Our rushing yards are over 100. I think it's like 112. It's incredible. The dude just does so much for the team, for the offense, and no one wants to tackle him. He finally told what his real weight was, Dom and Raw, and yeah, and to Equiminius, and it was just like, okay, yeah, I had a feeling because I remember last year, T was it TJ? No. So it was Pat Fryermuth. It was Fryermuth. I think it was on McAfee, and they were talking about Darnell. They asked about his weight because they couldn't believe what his weight, was because he's listed at 265, and they're like, "There's no way that dude looks huge." And he cut. Pat's like, "I'm not going to disclose his information just because it's probably a competitive thing, a psychological thing." But he said, "I can guarantee you and tell you that he's not 265." And I was like, "Yeah, no way." So that's where I want to give a lot of the credit to as well on offense. But yeah, the defense is really playing amazing. It has been the past few weeks, even when we took the loss to the Chargers. The defense wasn't really a problem. The offense just kind of really getting anything going. I think if it did, the defense would have shut down the Chargers. There you go. Yeah. If he was out of bounds, he could easily kept going. So, you know, um, I think this team, we got a good matchup ahead of us here with the Bears, but I think this team here is prepared. The defense has been playing more sound, and I think as long as that happens, I think the Steelers will be fine. They'll just see what happens at quarterback this week. But I think Aaron Rodgers will play, short of them, saying we just want to rest you, so we have you for the playoffs. With that being the aspirations of the Steelers.
Um, I'm much less optimistic than the lob that you just gave me there on the introduction. But I'm Vince McMahon with the comments this year at this point. It's rough out here. But to me, honestly, the game was pretty boring, but I was happy to see us fighting for it. We did make history being the first NFL team to lose in Madrid. Um, and lose in it doubly stings because I'm a Real Madrid fan as well. So to see them lose in the Santiago Bernabeu was disappointing. But if I'm a silver linings type of guy, positives I'm gonna take away is Mariota managing a game decently. Um, Offense still not producing enough points. Debo Samuel still looks sharp. Um, Again, it's this season is pretty much lost. And to see us at this state, I just want us to be able to get some good reps for guys and stay as healthy as possible throughout the rest of the season. I think the foundations of what can happen next year can be built during this time now. But that's what I'm looking ahead at realistically. I think Dan Quinn deserves another go as head coach. I don't think we need to disrupt the stability that we have there. But maybe some other shakeups can happen within the organization. We already gave our kicker the boot. So it'll be interesting to see the type of personnel that we can add to this unit and also making it through the rest of this season with folks healthy. I think at this point after this game, there's no point in rushing Jaden to a return. Um, and realistically, honestly, I would say the same with Terry McLaurin, especially as a receiver who is now 30 plus. I would hate to risk him in these late games in the season. And Debo looks sharp and healthy. I want things to stay that way. So, yeah, realistically, I'm like, hey, chin up, next up. But the Eagles got the NFC East this year. They've still got to play the Cowboys, and we still got to play them twice. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we're not rolling over for those last 3 or 4 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this team might play spoiler late in the season, uh, but
I
we'll
think there'll
see.
definitely be a trap game for sure. There'll be a trap game, but to me, obviously as a diehard, that means nothing. And
Yeah, but yeah, at least you can let everyone rest. I think Jalen getting hurt, the knee injury early in the season, and then the dislocated elbow was just way too much to overcome. I think that this season is a wash, and I don't know if you can tell a team to tank, but maybe you could get a higher draft pick and get some value out of it. But yeah, I think Terry. I mean, I'm sure he'll want to get reps, towards the end of the season if he's healthy, just to get back into shape. That'll probably help going into next season.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be excited for this team, and it's just I think most teams can't overcome, things like injury at like quarterback. It's just there's not really a proven track record. Usually, when you lose your starting QB for more than half the season, you're not making it to the playoffs. You're not going to win
I said this when we were about 5 weeks into the season that it was like our team honestly didn't look that different from last year. It's just some of the breaks that went our way on the run that we did last year were not falling our way this year.
yeah,
And
hmm
then
that's
you
right.
you add on um, 2 major injuries, and there you go. You before you know it, you slip down to 8 losses. And that's just hey, that's the NFL. It's competitive. And we were talking about CJ Stroud. I think what we'll start to see is a similar cloud coming over Jaden. after his sophomore year, going into his third year, from the media. And okay, rookie of the year candidate, can he sustain over time, etc. And that's nothing new to the Washington quarterback position. It's actually been a very cursed position. We've had a rookie of the year before who fell to injury and then was never able to replicate that success. So I think that's what's on the fear of every Washington fan's mind. But
Yeah.
uh, I also don't think we can be paralyzed by those situations in the past, and that Jaden is fully capable of being the answer to everything that we need.
I also think Jaden's style of play is a lot different than Robert Griffin's was. Like I think
I think
Jaden,
it's his stature though too is more than anything where it's like um despite RG3's style of play, it was also just his overall frame. Um, like being like just that 6'1" and the size that he was at is where I think Jaden, being a slightly bigger guy, is able to tank some of that damage. He's pulling up like Magneto and Rivals.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, Quay, did you have any thoughts on the Commanders?
I mean, season's definitely a bit of a wash. Um,
Cut the show.
I don't think I don't think most people honestly expected that when the season started. Just bit I think bit by the injury bug. Um, that's a big deal, especially when you have a really good young quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Um, I think he'll be considered a sophomore slump more so due to injury. I don't think his performance, showed anything negative, for the games that he played. It seemed like he cut out some certain mistakes. I wasn't turning the ball over too much. I think when he tried to come back from injuries a bit quicker, we saw a little bit more pressing out there. Um, and again, I think that's what became the downfall. But I think this organization just needs to kind of look at the past, look at everything, and say, all right, we can't let this investment go to waste. We got to take care of this investment and, just let him get healthy. Don't rush him back, even for next year, because he's obviously not going to play this year. But even for next year, don't even rush him back if he's not ready. Week one, keep keep him as healthy as possible before he's ready. And I think Dan Quinn definitely deserves another shot. I don't think this is a big deal in terms of firing. I think the team is trying to play as hard as possible. Mariota has played some decent football as a backup. He's done what a backup is supposed to do. I think where this team can improve going forward is on defense, mainly in the secondary. Um, doesn't seem like there's guys that can really cover, give up a lot of passing yards, and the front four is really good, but everything else on that defense is considered suspect. So, but
Yeah, and
starting
that's
with that
something that
secondary, I think that's
Dan
what needs to
Quinn
improve.
is supposed to be like looked at to be spearheading. So that's a disappointing part right there. And I think like we have decent personnel, but for whatever reason, they're also not playing at their best or making mistakes that cost us games. Um,
Hmm.
and so at that point, I think just as a franchise too, we were built on, our trademark secondary players and some great linebackers like London Fletcher. I think we need a more presence like that, and whether it's us going out and trading for it or injecting some good young talent into that defense, I think is much needed. Um, and what we have on the offensive side of the ball when healthy is there. It's just being able to sustain in some of these games is where we were really just getting out punched in the shootouts.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the season may seem like it's over, but hopefully the DMV will see some at least the team win a couple more times by the end of the year, especially if they're not within reach of a top five pick. But it is things are looking very grim right now over there. Let's transition over to just the NFL in general, and then talk about some of the other results. And what are some of the things that happened in Week 11 that you guys find exciting? I mean, some of the things that come to my mind are, uh, the Jaguars uh, beating up the Chargers, who look like one of the better teams in the league. The Chiefs losing to the Broncos, and it's seeming like their reign as a division champ is at a close, as the Broncos are the number one seed overall right now as it stands in the AFC. Um, Eagles being the Lions in prime time, and AJ Brown kind of being upset about his lack of productivity in the role. Um, the Bills, they beat the Bucks just to lose, yesterday with the Texans. I think that's super interesting too. But yeah, what are some of the storylines that have you guys buzzing?
I like the to me best division in the NFL, NFC North right now. And I know we touched on the Steelers, but their opponent this week, how about the Bears clutching out a 2-point
Yeah.
win over the Vikings in a close game? To me, Caleb Williams and the Bears are having an inverse year with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. They're looking similar to what we were able to accomplish last year, winning a lot of close games.
Mhm.
Um, just kind of figuring it out as a unit and having people step up and clutch things up. Certain lucky shit go their way too. Even just in the game that they beat us this year. It was 100% winnable for our team, but we threw it away and gave them an opportunity in possession to close out the game. And hey, there's something to be said that when this is the right time of the season for a team to really be hitting that form and getting that confidence from these close wins, that's exactly what you want to see. So it'll be a good test going up against the Steelers. And then I think with the Lions putting up a great fight against the Eagles. Still kind of their offense getting shut down. I think that they're proven that they're right up there. And the Eagles are a lot of people's favorite on the NFC side of things. So for them to have one possession game with that team, I think still just bodes well for the fact that they're probably going to be hanging around near the NFC divisional round when it comes to playoff time. Cowboys got a much needed win, but I think they're going to be brought down to reality against the Eagles. But you never know in an NFC slugfest rivalry game. So that's one that I'll be hate watching. And I also was really surprised, but I also am kind of split in the middle on this one. But the Broncos getting a nice win over the Chiefs. I still think the Chiefs, I'm never going to doubt them at 5-5. Um, in addition to the Ravens, for making a run on the last leg of the season. And the Broncos look great. I think they're well coached, and I think they're poised to honestly really go on a run here. But to me, it comes down to, those figures. Lamar, Pat Mahomes, when are they going to make their move? And I think, these next three games are really going to paint that final picture for us. And yeah, that's what I'm most looking forward to. It's kind of like I feel like the Thanksgiving games kind of the season really starts to compress at that point. Outcomes start to be determined. People who are out of contention start to pull up lame, etc. We get that playoff picture, and I don't think it. will look exactly the same as it does now. But it'll be interesting to see who falls out. And I also think the Packers getting a clutch win. I don't think they played at their best at all, but were able to clutch out a nice victory there. So it'll be interesting to see which NFC North teams make it, because they've all still got a chance.
Well, I think I like the Chiefs. Um, this matchup with the Colts. This should be a very fun game. I think it's probably the game of the week. Just when you think of, what's at stake here, more so for the Chiefs here. Um, I think they lose this game. It
It's over.
doesn't bode too well for their playoff hopes. They have a tough schedule to kind of end out the season. Um, so again, the AFC, it is very, very slim pickings in terms of your spot and getting in, and the margin of error is very, very, very small. So I think this matchup should be fun to watch. Um, you know, playoff hopes are on the line here. I think the Chiefs have to look at every single game going forward as a playoff game. Um, otherwise, they're done. So another thing that's very interesting around is Burrow maybe starting this week.
Yeah.
Um, I just think as an organization, when your franchise quarterback is, I won't say injury prone, but he's had several different injuries. Do you really want to rush him back at this point when Joe Flacco has been playing great football? It was one game against the Steelers where he looked like a 40-year-old quarterback. Otherwise, I don't see why you don't keep Joe Flacco out there. Offense was running, and you wait. He can win you games. He's shown he can win. So you would just wait until December, maybe the second week of December, as the timeline was saying for Joe Burrow to come back, and that's when you put him in. So it's very interesting to see that he's coming back. Um, just because one or two reasons. Because one, you don't need to rush back, and then two, um, the timeline of which he's coming back. Um, no one didn't think it was going to be this fast. So we'll see what happens here. Big matchup against the Patriots, and they're playing very well. So we'll see what happens there. This will be a very exciting game. Um, Shador starting as well this week. Really rooting for him. Finally getting first team snaps in practice, so he can be ready and better for this game here. Got some time to play in this last game. Really didn't do so well against the Ravens, but kept it close and was even in a position to help the team get into a scoring situation. So there's a bit of a mixed bag. Even if you look at the stats, you would say, "Oh, that was just awful." But watching the tape, very mixed bag. A lot of good things in there that maybe didn't actually happen to his full potential or really execute fully. But a lot of good decision making, good passes that only an elite quarterback would want to try to make. So he had a crazy back shoulder, touchdown that ended up being dropped. Um, also great play by the D to give him credit, but the fact that he was willing to do that and make that play, Shador is going to be something special if he can, get that opportunity for sure. And then I think some of the more, other matchups that we can talk about too is Eagles and Cowboys. We'll see what happens there. Very close matchup week one. So this is their first time seeing each other since that. But the Cowboys have made some changes. Maybe their defense is a little better. It can help them. Defense is full of firepower, but Eagles defense is really good, and this Eagles team has shown they can win games all types of ways. So, but I think the surprise thing overall for me is the Jaguars, like you said, beating the Chargers. It was one of those things where I wasn't expecting the Chargers to lose that game. That some weeks they look like the best team, potentially in the AFC West. I know the Broncos had the record, but just from top to bottom, from the way their offense performs and their defense performs when they play their best, like, man, they're like the best team in the AFC West. But then you realize, like, oh, this is why the record is what it is. Because they can't close out and win games that they should win. By all accounts, I think it's the Steelers defense, or I'm sorry, Steelers offense was able to do anything and execute, more. I think the Steelers could have beat the Chargers. So, but I don't know what it says more, if it's a good statement win by the Jaguars or if it's just a very bad, loss that, very concerning loss for the Chargers. So, but
Yeah, I mean they had to
this week,
travel though, so maybe travel comes into play. You're in Jacksonville. You haven't been in Florida in a while. You know how it goes. So
yeah, it's true.
they didn't show up to play.
Very true. But I mean, that's all I got. I think the other matchup this week too, that's probably going to be a highlight outside of that Chiefs and Colts game, is going to be the Buccaneers Rams. Buccaneers need to start stringing along some wins. I know the injury bug has hurt them bad, but they need to start getting some wins to make sure they can close out the division. Somehow the Panthers are, right there. Somehow the Falcons can still make some noise too. So it's going to be a fun week 12.
Yeah. Well, condolences to those franchises that are looking in their rearview mirror. But we're living in the present. We won't live in our fears. And
Mm-mm.
yeah, well, we'll see what happens next week in the next episode of the NFL.
No, no spiel.
The spiel. Well, thanks everyone for getting together with me and talking shop on football. But um, spiel time. I'm gonna go first. Uh, and kind of circle back on the UFC pay per view that we previewed last week. And this time it is Islam Makhachev claiming the double champ status that very few individuals have ever been able to claim, the same as the John Joneses and the GSPs, the Amanda Nunes's of the world. Even his buddy Khabib Nurmagomedov never got the double champ status. He was able to beat Jack Della Maddalena on Saturday at Madison Square Garden. And it was a complete domination. Jack couldn't really do much. He wanted to keep the fight on his feet, but Islam did enough to gain his respect in the striking that he was completely taken off guard during the takedowns, and it was just too much. And for him to go up a weight class and dominate is just next level. It was very dominant. I mean, you don't see that very often. I believe his win streak right now is tied with Anderson Silva. That's how crazy his run has been here. 16 straight victories for Islam Makhachev. And then the co-main was Shevchenko and Wei also champ v champ fight, but the complete opposite result. the challenger moving up to the weight class was just too small. Valentino just dominated that one. Looked way bigger than Zhang Weili did, and kudos to Zhang Weili for putting herself out there. But Shevchenko was able to retain flyweight title and becomes the first female UFC fighter to record 60 career takedowns. Um, Another one that was crazy. Morales uh, beating Sean Brady, looking like a complete monster. I think afterwards on social media, there's always that UFC joke. I think it was Islam said it to Daniel Cormier, saying like, come to Dagestan, wrestle for like a year or two. But Morales was saying, you got to come to his crib and learn how to strike. So Morales is a complete beast, this monster that's rising. And then Prates with the TKO on Leon Edwards. This was probably Leon's last chance to really make another title run, fighting one of the rising stars with the Fighting Nerds, the Brazilian group that's really gaining a fan base on social media. They always wear like the glasses in the post game interview. But Prates looked great. So him and Morales in the welterweight division with this new champion, the double champ. It'll be really interesting to see what Islam can do to defend his title there at welterweight. So yeah, exciting night pay per view. It was probably one of the better nights of the year so far. Some folks might have said that main card was boring, but that's just someone dominating. I mean, if you can't get up, then how can you win that fight, right? So yeah, kudos to the double champ. Arguably one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, Islam Makhachev. So I'm gonna pass it over to Randy with his spiel.
Yes, sir. Makachev was looking like a boa constrictor in that ring. But I'm gonna kick it off, bringing you some international soccer news. We were talking about the international break that just came up. So we have the World Cup picture starting to form with a lot of the countries that are starting to stamp their passports and get ready to head over. Um, of course, we have an expansion of the World Cup in 2026. For the first time, there's going to be 48 total teams competing. So that's just something that's brand new to the World Cup. Your host nations are also multiple nations hosting the World Cup. This is not the first time that that's happened. You can look
Korea.
at Korea, Japan, and actually the inaugural World Cup was co-hosted
Korea.
between Uruguay and Argentina. And so this is actually a return and homage to the events that took place and how the World Cup was originally started. So our host nations are a trio with Canada, Mexico, and the United States, also known as North America. Your qualified nations are those three coming from Asia. I don't know why Australia is in the Asia division, but Australia, Iran, Japan, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and Uzbekistan have all punched their ticket. Coming from the African region, we have Algeria, Cape Verde, or Cabo Verde, Egypt, Ghana, Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire, Morocco, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia all punched their ticket. Coming from the CONCACAF region, which is where the United States, Canada, and Mexico are as well. There are three additional spots, and the teams that qualified for the first time attending their first World Cup, the smallest nation to qualify thus far, Curacao, Haiti, and Panama. And then coming from Europe, we have still a couple teams with an opportunity to play in the final qualifier. There's going to be a playoff between 12 teams to determine the last six spots. Europe has a few of those slots, but the current teams that group stages are Norway, going to their first World Cup since 1996, I believe. Portugal, qualifying for their, I think, sixth consecutive World Cup. Literally Ronaldo's entire career. Scotland punched their ticket in incredible fashion. Scott McTominay with an incredible bicycle kick goal. Um, their first time since '98, I believe. And then Spain, Switzerland. And then for the Oceania region, which I don't understand why Australia is not in this region, New Zealand has the qualifying spot. And then heading on down to South America, you've got the usual suspects of Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So that leaves six remaining spots, and we're going to see 12 teams duke it out in a playoff. Um, and so look forward to seeing those actually later on, probably in, I believe, 2026, when that playoff will be scheduled. And so, yeah, it should be pretty exciting to see which will be the last teams to make it in, and like who still has a chance. So there's going to be just some nations that are pretty well known. You've got Bolivia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Iraq, Jamaica, New Caledonia, and Suriname, which will compete in a six-team tournament. Um, and then there are still just a couple spots to claim beyond that. But yeah, 42 nations. Just waiting to see the final six. And yeah, it'll be an exciting World Cup this summer. We already saw Trump glazing Ronaldo, and that's just a precursor of all the pageantry that politicians are going to be ready to put on the world stage. And FIFA's president
Mm-hmm.
Infantino is going to be whoring himself out as well, per usual. But we come for the beautiful game, and I can't wait to see what some of the world's best athletes are able to produce on the global stage.
Yeah.
That's my spiel.
Yeah. Thanks for the spiel. Thanks for the update on international football there. Quay, what do you have for us there in NBA?
Oh man, I mean, the king has finally returned. Sciatica, no more booty problems, no more tight ends for LeBron. But no, it was honestly we're seeing probably we saw like modern, Showtime. You got people saying that we're really seeing Bird and Magic playing together. Um, LeBron was out there first game back, 11 points, 12 assists, 3 rebounds. Um, just doing everything. Just again, 23 years in the league. It doesn't even feel like this dude has been in the league that long. I mean, it has been that long, but it just doesn't feel like, when you look at him play, you're just like, man, has he really been playing for 23 years? Like he's still very much plays like at the top of like, the peak. I still think LeBron is very much a top 5 NBA player to this day. Um, and it's amazing to see the longevity. Broke the record for the longest NBA career as well. So it's really good to see there. We've been having some crazy point outings again. I mentioned that earlier this year. I believe it was 2 episodes ago. There's just been a lot of games where we're seeing these games go, into double overtime, almost triple overtime. And so we're getting 140-point outings. Some of these games, they might not even go to overtime, still getting them to be 140, 130 points. There's a lot of scoring going on. I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing or if this is a bad thing, long term for the league. I know a lot of people like to see high scores, but then we have people complain about defense. But then I know people would love to see like a 90 to 80 game every single time they turned on a basketball game, especially a professional basketball game. So I don't know, if there's is a problem that can be solved here, but um, we'll see if it's sustainable throughout the year. I think this is just something we're going to see on the regular basis during the regular season. Teams aren't going to care as much, so we're going to see a lot of scores get up there into the 120s and 130s on the regular now, because teams won't really buckle down until crunch time if they haven't already built that lead early. So, but so like I said, we'll see what happens there. With me being in the desert, I feel like I have to shout out the Suns playing much better than I think anyone anticipated. Right now, seventh seed in the West. So right in that play-in spot, they're actually ahead of the Warriors. I don't think that'll last long, but they are playing very, very well. We have guys like a Grayson Allen, had the reputation of being like a dirty player. I think has really cleaned up that behavior a lot, and I think his reputation doesn't really hold as much as that guy, from the past. But some people still see him and think of him as that dirty player from Duke, and early on in his NBA career. But he's been playing very, very well for the Suns, responsible for some of these wins as well. And so we'll see what happens there. But we got guys coming back from injuries like Kobe White, helping with the Bulls, and the Bulls have been kind of exciting to watch this year. We've had teams like the Jazz where Larry Markkinen and Keontae George have just been going off again, scoring points. The Rockets here, third in the West, have really been, showing out with this tallest lineup in league history. But then they even got Reece Shepherd finally utilizing him, and he's been helping them out a lot. And Toronto, they got Brandon Ingram. Shout out Brandon Ingram with Glow. Have like a nice little relationship there. But Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Manuel Quickly, Jakob Pertl, like this is a fun young Toronto team that's going to be able to make some noise. So we're still early on in the year, 12 to 15 games in, depending on a team schedule. But it's been a fun 15 games so far. Some of the same players that we know just still thriving, like a Giannis, Jokic, Shea reigning MVP. Thunder still best team right now, 15-1. So it's a fun season so far, and I think it's only gonna get more entertaining as it goes on. But yeah, shout out the NBA for starting out really good, and putting out a good product. No matter if people complain about these scoring outings, being too, it hasn't been any more entertaining, if you ask me, in a long time.
Yeah, and condolences out there for Victor as he's nursing, I believe, a lower leg injury, right, of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely
And
gonna miss him. I
Temple,
mean he had some cool highlights at the beginning of the season.
for sure, he's an alien. He's not human.
No, he's not, but that's why we watch sports, to watch
Can you imagine if John
individuals.
Morant went to the Spurs?
Yeah, that'd be a crazy
Mm.
pairing. But yeah, these alien like
Cheating.
creatures that we watch, that's why we watch sports, right? To see people perform feats that the average human being can't. So that's it for our show. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Spiel Sports Talk Show. It's your boy Sal. It's a Muslim. I'm with my boys here, Randy and Quay. Thanks to both of you for coming on the show tonight on a Friday night, working on a Friday. That's a type of dedication
Working
and
on
a
a
hustle
Friday.
that everyone needs to get in tune with to succeed here in life. So everyone stay safe out there on those streets. Get home safely and have a good night. Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Deuces.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Dun, 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 dun.